Well, the world has been riveted by Donald Trump and the transition of power from him to Joe Biden. But there are other precedents to look at, especially for us Canadians, other lessons to learn. And the United Kingdom has plenty to offer, not only in how they handled the Brexit or mishandled it, but also how they're handling the civil liberties lockdown that we see. The United Kingdom is in some of its strictest lockdowns yet. What a pleasure it is to read our friend Calvin Robinson in a publication called The Mallard. That's a great name for a magazine. His latest article is called The Censorship of Big Tech. We've spoken with Calvin before. You'll remember him as the boss of Defund BBC and a senior fellow of the Policy Exchange. And he joins us now via Skype. Calvin, great to see you again. I just chuckle at the name The Mallard, but it looks like a great read. I'd encourage our viewers to go there and read your article. Tell me about the case you make about big tech censorship. What lessons can we Canadians learn from the UK, for example?
Absolutely. So I think there is so much at stake here. And I really, really do believe that democracy itself is at stake because as we saw with Brexit, we've had nearly 5 years now of battles after we had one of the biggest votes we've ever had in this country. More people came out to vote to leave the European referendum than normally come out to vote for anything else. And the metropolitan liberal elite, the establishment, the uppity people who run things were not happy with the result. They didn't get the result they wanted. Our prime minister quit immediately. We've had two prime ministers since then who struggled to get this done. But the whole of Parliament, the whole of our political system was against us leaving the European Union. And when more people have voted for it than for anything else, and the establishment are against it, we've got a loggerheads, we've got a battle here, and this is the undermining of democracy. And we're seeing the same thing in America. We saw, when Donald Trump got elected, it was not in my name or not my president. And now that Biden's been elected, we're seeing the reverse. Trump is saying, this wasn't a legit election result. So no one seems to want to concede ground anymore. And you can't have democracy unless the losers concede. Yeah. It doesn't work.
Now, one of the things that I love about freedom of speech, and I've been in my own free speech battles over here, is that free speech is a safety valve. If you're frustrated, if you feel a grievance, if you feel hard done by, you can shout it to the wind. And if you are allowed to do that, you feel like at least you had your day in court, so to speak. And I think that's part of accepting a loss in a game. If you agree to the rules of the game and you play and you lose, accepting it, that's a healing thing. But if you are now banned from expressing your grievance, banned from expressing your point of view, that doesn't stop you from feeling, and I mentioned that, Calvin.
Absolutely.
Sorry, go ahead.
I'm just saying it's empowering, isn't it? To have a moan, to have a rant. It's quite British, actually, just to be unhappy about something and put it out there. And people can argue against it or join in with you. But if you're shut down because you have the wrong opinion and you're not subscribing to the approved narrative, that's very dangerous because that sends your opinion underground. And we all know what happens, according to history, if opinions get shoved into the underground. They uprise and we get extremists. And we've seen that across the world and across time. And we're seeing this at the moment. And it's not just a US issue, this is a global issue in that big tech has become too powerful. When big tech can collude and work together, and I'm talking about Apple, Google, Facebook, Amazon, they're all working together now. There's surely an antitrust lawsuit coming up, but they're working together to shut down debate. And they silenced the most powerful man in the world. They silenced the leader of the free world and said, actually, you're not allowed a platform anymore. And people are saying, you know what, these are free to do whatever they like. They're private companies. Yes, they are private companies, but they're also a monopoly and they control our communications infrastructure. So they're bigger than a private company. They are the platform that we've come to expect to get news and information from. And Trump made that happen. He made Twitter what it is. It wasn't the platform it was when he joined. And he's made it the in thing for politicians to kind of put their news and their information out there. And so to remove him, to remove a sitting president of the United States from being able to express himself and put news out there is, in effect, it's a coup d'etat. It really is. And big tech, they've flexed their muscles and said, we are more powerful than the president of the United States. And it's our way or the highway. And it's not just him. They silenced a load of high-profile conservative voices. I've had hundreds of followers disappearing from my following list. I'm sure you've had the same over the last few days. People who think like us or don't think like Jack Dorsey of Twitter or Zuckerberg from Facebook, people who think differently are being erased and silenced. What is this? It's totalitarian. It's scary. It's a tyranny. Yeah. And these big companies are orchestrating it together.
People say, well, it's a private company, go start your own. First of all, when it was the case of the little baker being ordered to bake a cake for a gay wedding, people said, no, bake the cake, you bigot, that's illegal. Well, these tech companies don't want to bake the cake for Trump, but when a bunch of conservatives and Trump supporters went to a startup called Parler, Parler, well, they shut that down too. Amazon stopped hosting their servers. Apple and Google refused to sell the app. 12 different companies. They shut down the startups. So it's not just that you can't use the monopoly sites that have 99.9% of the traffic. If you think, okay, I'll make a go of it on this tiny little island, they'll flatten that without a blink. That's what's scary to me, is it's a juggernaut that crushes anything in its path. I'm a little worried here myself because we rely on Google, YouTube, and servers. We rely on everything to be in the public square in 2021.
Ezra, it's like you're suggesting that the left have double standards. It's outrageous. But you're completely right. People say, well, make your own app. And Parler or Parlay, however it's pronounced, made their own app. But then they got shut off the App Store. They got shut off the Play Store. And not only that, their entire servers have been closed down. This is what I mean by collusion of Amazon, Google, Facebook. They're all working together. And that is illegal in and of itself. But who's going to challenge them? Trump was the only political figure I can think of that would stand up to big tech. And now that he's on his way out, I'm very worried about what's going to happen next. Because if I want to make an app that promotes free speech, I've got to make my own operating system now with my own app store. Probably have to make my own mobile phone. Like, how far does it go? Will the airwaves, the networks, will they be shutting people down next? Do I have to make my own network too? It's not possible, is it? When they control the infrastructure, the information highway, they control the messaging. And they need to decide whether they are a platform or a publisher. Because if they're going to curate content and they're going to censor people, they're a publisher. Therefore, they need to abide by the regulations that publications do, which are much more stringent, and there's much more accountability there. But right now, they're saying they're platforms, so they have very limited accountability, and it's not democratic. Like, if I don't agree with Twitter or Facebook or their policies, I don't agree with their politics, who do I challenge that with? How do I vote them out? How do I get someone else in that I do agree with? It's impossible. Yeah. It's very, very worrying.
That's an excerpt from my daily show, The Ezra Levant Show. Every day I do a monologue on the news of the day, then I interview an interesting guest, and then I read my hate mail. You gotta subscribe. Go to rebelnews.com.